We're going to make a cookies and cream cheesecake. This is my favorite cheesecake. I will leave the measurements for each of the ingredients in the description box below the video. You'll need some granulated sugar, some all-purpose flour, some butter, some salt, and some whole milk, some more sugar, and some flavorings, some sour cream, and some cookie crumbs for the crust, which I will also leave a link to at the end of the video. You'll need 4 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese and 5 eggs. All of these need to be at room temperature, so lay them out about 3 hours before you plan to make the cheesecake. You'll need a springform pan, which is very easy to find. You can usually get those at the grocery store, and they're about $9 to $10 each. And you'll need a roasting pan and some tin foil. So I'll go ahead and start by wrapping tin foil around the outside of my cheesecake pan. And I like to do this because I'm going to put this in a water bath, and you put tin foil on the outside to keep water from getting into the pan. And I'll go ahead and cook my cheesecake crust, and while that's cooking I'm going to separate out my egg yolks. So I have 5 jumbo eggs, and I'm going to use the yolks of 2 of them and use the whole eggs of 3, and that's because they're so big. I did make this cheesecake again earlier, and I used large eggs, so I used 4 large whole eggs and the yolk of 1 of the large eggs, because the jumbo eggs, they weigh about 62 grams each, which is very large. I mean, that's a big egg, and the large eggs weigh around, I don't know, like 55 grams. So I'll show you how I like to separate my yolks. I crack them and then just kind of hold them vertically and let a lot of the white fall out. And then I toss it again over to the other side of the yolk, let the remaining white fall out. Now that the crust has cooled, I can go ahead and get the roasting pan ready, the water bath for my cheesecake. So I'll put about an inch of water in there and put it in a 450-degree oven and let it get warm. And while that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and cream the 4 blocks of cream cheese. I want to get it nice and whipped up, and I keep the sides scraped the entire time. It's very important to keep your sides scraped throughout the entire process of making the cheesecake. The reason why you do this is because a lot of that's going to harden up on the sides, and if you scrape it down, later you're going to just put lumps into your batter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my sugar. That's a 1.5 cups of sugar, and I'm going to continue to scrape my batter down from the sides and into the bowl. With a hand mixer also, you need to make sure to get down at the bottom of the bowl so that everything gets mixed up. And I'm going to go ahead and add my flour. That's a 1/4 cup of all-purpose sifted flour. Continuing to scrape the sides. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in my eggs one at a time, and I'm going to continue to whip this pretty good. I've seen some recipes before where they say not to over whip your batter, but I've not found that to be the case for me, that they say it will make it crack, but I found through my years of making this cheesecake that it's the way that I cook it in the oven that keeps it from cracking and not the whipping. So that's just me. Now I'm going to wash these off because they have some different stages of the batter in there, and so I don't want to reintroduce lumps or anything like that into my batter. I'm going to check the bottom of the bowl to make sure there's nothing lumpy down there that I didn't beat well. And now that I'm pretty convinced that it's nice and smooth, I'll go ahead and add my sour cream. And I'll add my 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and I'm going to sneak in just a little bit of almond extract, about 1/2 teaspoon, I just like that flavor in here, so that's why I add it. And I will go ahead and also add the 1/4 cup of whole milk. So I'm going to blend all this up until everything is mixed up very well. And I'll also continue to scrape the sides and make sure again that everything is mixed in and there's nothing at the bottom of the bowl. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add this to my cooled crust. And again, I do like a creamy cheesecake, so that's what I'm going to show you how to make. After I've added my filling, I'm going to take the back of a spoon, the handle, and just kind of run it through the cheesecake to make sure to release any air pockets that might be in there. And now I'll transfer that to the roasting pan, which is warm in the oven. The oven is at 450 degrees. So I will cook it at 450 degrees for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I'm going to reduce the heat to 325 for 20 more minutes. After 20 minutes, I'll reduce the heat once again to 250 for 30 minutes. I decided to check on my cheesecake 20 minutes into my 30 minutes, and it was looking a little more brown around the edges than I preferred. So I just cracked the door open and let it sit there for 10 more minutes, and I turned the oven off. And I checked it one more time. The center was nice and jiggly, just like I was looking for. You want it to still be moving around a little bit, because again, I want a creamy cheesecake, and once we chill this, it's going to set very nicely. So you remember how I said that I used large eggs in another cheesecake? Well, this is the other cheesecake, and you'll notice that it's not near as full as the one where I used the jumbo eggs. The jumbo eggs had a lot of white in them, and so I think that affected the volume on the cheesecake. So it was much more full, and I think that's why it browned a little bit more on top. I cooked them the same way with the same ingredients, with the exception of the eggs. One other small thing that I did do with this cheesecake is I checked on it. I opened the door when it was baking at around 325, so it did let a lot of that heat escape from the oven from being reduced from 450 to 325. So if you want a little bit of a different color, maybe make sure that the pan is not too full and let a little bit of that heat escape from the oven when it's baking at 325. So I took the tinfoil off and I let it sit out at room temperature for 1 hour, and then I took my knife and I went around the outside edges just to make sure it was nice and loose. I kept my knife a little bit moist just to kind of help it along. Then it was time to remove the pan. And after I remove the pan from here, I'm going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. You can probably go ahead and cut you a slice after about 8 hours, but I really like for it to sit in the refrigerator overnight and then on into the next day before I cut into it. I like for the center to be nice and set, so the refrigerator will do that for you. After it sat in the refrigerator, the next day we were able to enjoy a slice, and in between slices it's important to wipe off your blade of your knife so that you don't mess up your cheesecake and get the crumbs all in the top and that kind of thing when you're cutting it. And whipped cream is awesome on here. I know I didn't put that in the beginning of the video, but whipped cream is a must-have on here. So put a little cookies on there also, and of course you've got cookie in the crust, and it's really good. It's my favorite cheesecake. I hope you can try it. Thanks for watching.